Hello, my name is John Eggers. Welcome to Writer Speak, a 15-minute show devoted to an interview with a local author. Today our guest is Joanna Dymond, who just finished her book. She's going to talk about the writing process and what that entails. Joanna, where do writers get their ideas from?
Well, hello, John, and I'd be glad to answer that. I'm not sure where they get their ideas. I know I got mine from a magazine article. And the magazine article was very, very pertinent because I was having a terrible problem at the time. I had just bought a big property that I considered to be haunted.
Wow, wow. Well, I imagine your book has characters, naturally. How do you develop your characters?
Well, most of my characters are compiled. And by compiled, I mean I take a little bit from friends, a little bit from relatives, and a little bit from people I see, either in restaurants or see on the street, and I mix them all together. I do have a couple of characters that are completely made up. And in fact, one of the characters was supposed to be incidental. He was just supposed to have a walk-on, say a few words, and leave the book. But after a couple of tests where I took my book out for a test run and read to writers' groups, the writers' groups all said, "We love that guy. We want to hear more about him, want to see him in the book. What happened to him?" Well, eventually he became the lead character in the book.
Wow, terrific. Now, you wrote a book novel, it's on fiction, and you were talking about making things up. Do writers of fiction use research at all in their books?
Oh, yes, yes, they do. I know in my case, I researched forensics. I researched real estate sales, especially in the rural areas, which it is different in the rural areas than it is in the cities. I researched ambulance protocol. I spent a few days over with the Bemidji ambulance. I didn't ride rogue with them or anything, but I certainly got a good education.
I do a little bit of writing, just a little bit of writing, and one of my problems is that I just can't seem to find the time. Do writers have a schedule, and more specifically, do you have a schedule when you write?
Well, I think writers do have a schedule. I don't. I only write when I feel like it. This leads to some odd writing venues. I write in other people's cars. I write in cafes. I write when I'm out walking. I write on my hand. I have a selection of written material on envelopes and shopping bags, and I write just about on anything when the mood hits me. But however, I must mention it's not written on the fly, like I just mentioned. My book was transcribed. I dictated it. I dictated the bare bones of my book and had it professionally transcribed.
Okay. What about where you write? Now, I really can't write unless my desk is perfectly clean. I know Stephen King likes to use a desk. Truman Capote would sit on a couch and write. How about you? Do you have a perfect or a place where you like to write?
No, I really don't. I really don't care. As long as I can capture the clarity of the vision in my mind, like I get an idea for a character, I must just run and write it down. However, I must say that of all the techniques that, you know, the famous writers used, and you are right about that, I do prefer Truman Capote's method of sitting on a bed or a couch and stretching out my legs, and I like to use a portable desk.
Okay. Well, it certainly sounds like he writes in comfort. Most experts say that you should have an outline of your book before you actually begin it. Other people just start from page one and go right through it. How about you, Joanna? What do you say about that?
No, I believe you should have an outline. I did have one, but it was only for each chapter. So it was a little different. I would, if I decided to throw that chapter out and create a new one, I wrote a new outline. Yes, every chapter that I've written has an outline.
And if I wanted to write a book on fiction, should I have a certain genre in mind, like romance or comedy or historical fiction?
Oh yes, I think that would be an excellent idea. However, I did not try to figure out what to write about. I knew I wanted to be a mystery writer. I'm addicted to the genre. I have written and not written, excuse me, a slip. I have read over 1,000 mystery novels.
Wow.
And I donated 500 of them to the Bemidji Library in 2008. It's not so good because I run across my own books in there.
Right. What novels sell the best? If you were going to advise somebody on, they wanted to write a novel, they said, Joanna, what kind of novel should I write, and what novels really sell the best?
That's an excellent question. I do think that someone writing their first novel or wanting to be a writer should consider that there are some genres of writing that are more difficult to write, more difficult to research, and perhaps, and this is most important, the most difficult to sell. Now, the mystery novel is the easiest to sell.
Really?
It's the biggest seller of all genre, even history or memoir or whatever. So I guess I'm on a good track there. The worst, and I don't mean this that I dislike this genre, I don't. I do like it, but it's the short story. Don't take on the short story if you want to sell your book.
I'll remember that. I'll just throw all my short stories into the, into the garbage can right now. Well, I like to use my computer when I write, and I don't often write in a notebook, but sometimes I do. But how about you? What do you prefer? How do you write? What do you write on?
I like the legal pad. I have hundreds of legal pads. Some are filled and others are just part way filled. I like the pressure of my pen on a yellow legal pad. I do write in longhand. I must mention that all my pens come from Bemidji businessmen, and I have quite a collection. I have the Cease Funeral Home. I worked with that yesterday, and I like to use the conical pen, and so I try them all out before I get them voluntarily given to me.
Have you had one pen that's more luckier than others?
You know,
in terms of writing?
True. I do. I have one that is so lucky.
What's your best pen?
Well, it's a pen I found in the post office.
Really?
And it's got some green company. I can't even remember the name, but it's a new pen, and it's a green pen, so it is a future pen.
All right. Well, next time I go in the post office, I'll take a look out for any green pens. Editing the work, that's where the work comes in. You write your first draft. Talk to us about how to edit your work.
That's an extremely important part of writing a book, is the editing. I know that I probably couldn't continue to write unless I had a coach. And by a coach, I mean it's a young lady that I hired from the loft. I hired her quite a few years ago now. And what she does is she goes over my drafts for spelling, grammar, and she may even question me on clarity. She never puts a hand to my work. She would never rewrite anything. But it's extremely valuable to me to have this kind of second look. And I would like to mention that I think that a lot of very famous writers have had coaches, although we don't know about that.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to mention the most, probably in my book, the most famous coach and writer is T.S. Eliot and his coach, Ezra Pound.
You mentioned the loft. Some of our listeners might know what the loft is. What is the loft?
The Loft is a writing organization. It's located in Minneapolis, and you can sign up at the Loft for any level of writer that you are. Top professionals belong, as well as the beginning apprentice writer, and they all have classes there. I know I go to classes at the Loft 4 or 5 times a year.
Well, you have your manuscript. Should you send it in, carry it in, mail it in? What happens next?
My manuscript is all finished, and it should go first to a literary agent. Now it seems that the rules have changed for a literary agent. You can't go to any literary agent and say, hey, I'm a beginning writer and I'd like to have you represent me. No, you can't. They say on their websites, you have to be recommended to us. Another writer that I've represented has to recommend you. And if you go and dare and send me a manuscript without this kind of recommendation, I'll just destroy it.
Wow.
It's pretty threatening.
Well, let's say that it is accepted by a publishing company. Is the job of a writer finished when it is accepted?
No, it's not. Then you go into teamwork with the editor. It's called the acquiring editor at the publisher, who has made a pitch for your book and feels that working with you, working with me, working with you, they can sell the book. They actually front for you at the publishers. So you find that you're still working, you're still defending your work, and you might have to compromise, which you might find very painful.
If you do sell your book, what can you expect in terms of any sort of monetary reward?
Well, I'm going to take just a kind of a rough estimate on that. I think you should get a minimum of a $6,000 advance. I think most writers would like to have 12 or 15 as a beginning writer. You should settle only for 12.5% royalties after X number have been sold, so that you get continuous checks in the mail up to a certain year. And you have to have the help of a lawyer before you sign your contract. And the best ones in Minnesota, and now I don't work for them, is Best and Flanagan in Minneapolis.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you finished your book, Joanna. What's your next step?
Well, I'm going to write another book. And
what-
I've decided to write a memoir.
A memoir?
And it's about growing up in Clearwater County.
Well, that should be interesting, Joanna.
Yes, a child of immigrants.
Right.
And the work ethic I inherited and the fun and love I got.
Do you have a
from
title
them.
for it yet?
Yes, I do. It's called Waiting for Mama.
Waiting for Mama. Well,
Yes, and there's a
listeners,
story behind that, but
there you have it. Let's look for that book. Let's wait for that book, Waiting for Mama. And thank you, Joanna Dymond, for being with us today. Join us again next week when our guests will be Garrison Keeler and Paul Keith.
thank you very much, John.
Thank you for coming here.